Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Picture Mavericks. There's a question at the center of Good Will Hunting that never gets asked out loud, but you feel it in every single scene. What do you do with a gift you never asked for? Not talent in the abstract, not ambition, not drive, but raw, unearned genius that arrived in the wrong life, in the wrong neighborhood, in the wrong circumstances. A gift that sits alongside damage, so deep it has become part of the person's identity. Good Will Hunting, released in 1997 and written by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, is one of the most carefully constructed emotional dramas American cinema has ever produced. It was directed by Gus Van Sant. It starred Matt Damon, Robin Williams, Ben Affleck, and Minnie Driver, and it won 2 Academy Awards, one for Best Supporting Actor for Robin Williams, and one for Best Original Screenplay. But none of that quite captures what makes it special. What makes it special is that it is a film entirely about relationships. Every scene, every conflict, every moment of breakthrough or resistance exists inside a relationship. Between Will and his therapist, between Will and his girlfriend, between Will and his mentor, between Will and his best friend, and quietly underneath all of it, between Will and himself. This is not a math movie. It uses mathematics the way some films use sports or music as a surface through which something much deeper is examined. The real subject is trauma, and specifically the way trauma teaches us to survive by refusing to live. We should start with Professor Gerald Lambo, because he is the character the film uses to introduce us to Will's world. Lambo is a Fields Medal winner, which is effectively the Nobel Prize of Mathematics. He is brilliant, accomplished, and genuinely passionate about his field. When he discovers that an anonymous janitor has solved a graduate-level problem he left on a chalkboard as a semester-long challenge, his excitement is real. This is not a villain, but the film is precise about what Lambo actually wants from Will, and it is not Will's happiness. Lambo wants Will to be great in the way that Lambo defines greatness. He wants Will in prestigious institutions, solving important problems, taking interviews, building a legacy. He intervenes at Will's trial not purely out of compassion, but because he sees in Will something he wants to cultivate, perhaps something he wants to claim. There's a line later in the film where it is revealed that Will can solve theorems that even Lambo cannot, and that Lambo admittedly envies him. That detail is important. The relationship is not purely mentorship. It is also projection, and it is also envy dressed up as guidance. This mirrors something very recognizable in real life. The parent, the teacher, the mentor who believes their love for you is unconditional but has quietly attached conditions to it, who genuinely cares about you, but only as the version of you they have imagined. Will senses this, even if he cannot articulate it, and his resistance to Lambo's plans is not laziness or self-destruction. It is a form of self-preservation. The film handles this with care. It does not make Lambo a villain. It makes him human, flawed, well-meaning, and ultimately unable to give what he actually needs. 5 therapists fail before Shawn Maguire walks into the room. The film gives us just enough of those failed sessions to understand why they failed. Will is a prodigy, and he weaponizes his intelligence in therapy the same way he weaponizes it everywhere else. He reads people faster than they can read him. He identifies their insecurities, their frameworks, their theoretical biases, and he uses that knowledge to deflect, dismantle, and dismiss. He is not being cruel. He is being defended. Shawn works for one reason above all others. He grew up in the same neighborhood. He is not impressed by Will's intelligence, and he is not intimidated by his aggression. He has already lived a version of Will's life. He knows exactly what Will is doing, and he refuses to react to it. Their first session is one of the most perfectly written scenes in the film. Will picks up a painting that Shawn did himself and delivers a clinical, cruel, and extraordinarily perceptive analysis of what it says about Shawn's suppressed grief. Shawn's response is to grab Will by the throat and tell him quietly that if he ever disrespects him like that again, their sessions end. That is not a conventional therapeutic response, but is the right one for Will. Because what Will has never experienced before is someone who will not tolerate being treated as disposable, someone who pushes back. someone who stays. The therapy sessions that follow are not linear. They are slow, sometimes funny, sometimes painful, always honest. And running through all of them is Shawn's own unresolved grief over the death of his wife. He tells Will about the 1975 World Series, about giving up his ticket to spend time with a woman he had just met in a bar, a woman who would become the love of his life. It is a story about choosing the uncertain, living, human thing over the safe and predictable one. Shawn is not just treating Will. The film makes clear that Will is also, in some quiet way, treating Shawn. Will challenges Shawn to stop hiding behind his dead wife as a reason to never risk love again. The therapy runs in both directions. And then there's the scene. It's Not Your Fault scene is the emotional climax of the entire film, and it earns every second of what it asks of the audience. Shawn repeats the phrase again and again, gently, without urgency, while Will cycles through denial, irritation, sarcasm, and finally collapse. What breaks Will is not the words themselves. It is the fact that Shawn keeps saying them, that he does not flinch, that he does not leave. Robin Williams plays that scene with extraordinary restraint. He does not perform the emotion. He holds it, and that stillness is what makes it devastating. Skylar is a Harvard student, smart, warm, and genuinely interested in Will not as a curiosity, but as a person. Their early scenes together are some of the lightest in the film, full of wit and energy and the specific electricity of two people who recognize each other. But Will's relationship with Skylar is built on a fundamental deception, and both of them know it on some level. Will not tell her the truth about his life. He invents details, deflects personal questions, and keeps her at a distance even while pulling her closer. He is performing intimacy rather than practicing it. And when Skylar pushes, when she asks him to come to California with her and start a real shared life, Will panics completely. The argument scene in her dorm room is ugly and precise. Will tells her he does not love her. He shuts her out with the kind of deliberate cruelty that people use when they are terrified of being left first. Skylar, to her enormous credit, does not accept this. She tells him she loves him and that she knows he is scared and that she does not care about his past. And Will walks out anyway. This is the film's portrait of what Shawn later diagnoses so clearly. That Will is so skilled at predicting how relationships will fail that he engineers the failure himself, on his own terms, before anyone else can hurt him. He does not believe he is worth staying for. He has never had evidence that anyone stays. Skylar is not a peripheral character or simply a romantic subplot. She is a test that the film sets for Will, a concrete, loving, available human being standing directly in front of him and asking nothing more than that he show up. His inability to accept that offer, until the very end, is the measure of how deep his damage goes. Chucky Sullivan is Will's best friend since childhood. He is played by Ben Affleck with a warmth and groundedness that the role absolutely requires. Chucky is not a genius. He knows it, and he does not resent it. What he has is loyalty, humor, and a clear-eyed love for Will that is entirely free of agenda. This makes Chucky the most honest voice in Will's life. The scene where Chucky tells Will that wasting his potential as a laborer is an insult is one of the most quietly powerful moments in a film full of powerful moments. Chucky is not ambitious on his own behalf. He is not asking Will to fulfill someone else's dream of greatness. He is simply telling Will that he can see what Will cannot see about himself. That Will has something rare, and that choosing to bury it out of fear is a kind of betrayal, not of the world, but of Will himself. Chucky then says something that functions as the film's emotional compass. He says that his deepest wish is to knock on Will's door one morning to pick him up for work, and find that Will is just not there. That he is left without saying goodbye. That he is gone. It is a selfless wish. Chucky is essentially telling Will that the best thing Will could do for the people who love him is to leave them behind for something better. That staying, for Will, is not loyalty. It is surrender. The film's final image pays this off completely. Chucky walks up to Will's apartment, knocks, and no one answers. He looks at the empty space for a moment, and then he smiles. It is one of cinema's great endings, quiet, earned, and generous. Good Will Hunting is a film built around a single central idea, that trauma does not make you less. It makes you defend it. And the work of healing is not about becoming more capable or more successful. It is about learning, slowly and painfully, that you are allowed to be loved without having to earn it. Will is not short on intelligence. He is not short on potential. What he is short on is the belief that any of it belongs to him, that he deserves any of the good things that are being offered. Every relationship in his life, Lambo, Shawn, Skylar, Chucky, is in some way trying to tell him that he is worth staying for. The film is about how long it takes him to believe it. The film also draws a sharp line between intelligence and wisdom. Will can solve any theorem. He can read any book and remember it. He can take apart any argument, any person, any situation with clinical precision. But he cannot sit with another human being in the dark and simply be present. He does not know how to do that. Shawn does. Chucky does. And the film is clear that this kind of emotional intelligence, the willingness to be vulnerable, to stay, to feel things without analyzing them to death, is its own form of genius. There is also something specific and important in the way the film treats potential. Lambo frames Will's gift as an obligation, something that must be used in the service of greatness or else it is wasted. But the film pushes back on this. The ending does not show Will becoming a famous mathematician. It shows him driving to California to find a girl. His choice is not career. His choice is life. The film treats that as the braver and more meaningful option. It is also worth noting what the film does with grief. Shawn's arc is not loud. He does not have a dramatic breakdown or a triumphant recovery. What he has is a single conversation with Will in which Will essentially gives him permission to move on. And then, quietly, Shawn does. He packs a bag and goes to see the world. The healing in this film, for both characters, is understated and real. Good Will Hunting is nearly 30 years old. It was made on a modest budget by two first-time screenwriters who had been circulating the script for years before anyone took it seriously. It won 2 Oscars on the night it competed against some of the most technically accomplished films of the decade. It holds up not because of its technical achievements, but because it is about something true and permanent. It is about the specific and universal experience of being hurt early in life, building a self around that hurt, and then having to dismantle that self piece by piece in order to become someone capable of being happy. Robin Williams gives one of the great dramatic performances in American cinema history. Matt Damon and Ben Affleck wrote a script that is both intellectually sharp and emotionally devastating. Gus Van Sant directed it with restraint and precision. Every element is in service of the story, and the story is generous, patient, and deeply human. It is a masterpiece. Not because it is technically perfect, but because it is honest in a way that very few films manage to be. It does not tell you how to feel. It simply shows you two people, slowly and painfully, learning to stop running. Will Hunting eventually drives to California, and Chucky smiles at an empty door. And that is enough. Thank you for watching Picture Mavericks. And if this breakdown gave you something new to think about, consider subscribing because we go deeper so you do not have to. See you in the next one.